boost that? Can you see me better? Probably not. Lean like this. All right. I want to talk today about, and what if I don't? What I want to do is just take some chapters of the Bible, just read through them really quickly and point out some verses that seem to be commanding us things. Or are they just suggestions? I want to weigh this idea of when Paul tells us to do something, for example, or when Jesus tells us to do something in the Gospels, what are the repercussions if we don't? Are we supposed to do them, or are we not? Why does it seem to be a good idea if you do, but if you don't, it's no big deal? I wanted to lay some scriptures on you, and I may turn this into a whole nother series called And What If I Don't? And maybe we'll just pick random chapters, not random, specific chapters from the New Testament. I can do the Old if you want, but those are easy to dismiss. Oh, we're not under the law, we're under grace. As though everything in the Old Testament is under the law for some reason, which it isn't. But I want to read Romans chapter 12 to you real quick, and I'm going to throw some of these verses at you that you've heard before, I'm sure, and then I want you to ask yourself after each one, what if I don't do what he's saying for me to do here? Are there any negative repercussions? Am I saved anyways? Is it going to affect me and my relationship with Jesus at all? If you're one of those who believe that it's all about believing the right things and your behavior doesn't matter, let me see if that will square by the time we're done just with this chapter in Romans 12. I could do the whole book. I could do any of Paul's, like I said, we could pick any chapter and just go through it. Let me give you an example. Romans 12:1, I'm sure you've heard it many times. 1 through 3 will be familiar to you. The rest of it, maybe not so much, depending on how often you read this. I beseech you, therefore, brothers, this is Paul talking. He just got done spending a couple chapters talking about God reconciling Israel, his plans of putting blindness on them so that the Gentiles can come in and then all of Israel will be saved. It's an amazing plan. He just got done laying it all out. And so that's why he's saying, therefore, I beseech you, brothers, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. And I want you to pause real quick and think, well, all right, well, is that just a suggestion? I'm beseeching you, he says. I'm imploring you. Offer your bodies a living sacrifice. All right, and what if I don't? Is it really going to matter either way? Is this just a good idea, or is this something that's essential to the plan of salvation? If the goal is just to get into heaven, does it really matter if in this life I offered my body a living sacrifice or not? As long as I believe the right concepts, I'll get into heaven, right? That may sound like a gross oversimplification, but you'd be amazed, even as recently as last night in my apologetics class, that idea of that the whole point of the gospel is to get people to believe the right things so that they can get into heaven when they die. What about this? Offer your body a living sacrifice. Is that the equivalent of become a Christian? You think if you hear the gospel and respond to it, is that the equivalent of offering your body a living sacrifice? You really think that's what Paul is saying here after the first 11 chapters of Romans? If you track his progress through that whole thing to get to this point, are you really saying that what he's saying is if you believe the right things, then you'll get into heaven? Offer your body a living sacrifice, which is your reasonable service. What if I don't? Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you can prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. All right, do not be conformed to this world. So what if I do? Does it matter? Will it affect my salvation? What if I am conformed to this world? He says, don't be conformed to it. So is that a commandment or a suggestion? Is he just saying, hey, these are nice things to consider? You might want to think about implementing this in your approach to life. Don't be conformed to the ways of this world. Seems pretty cut and dry to me. So what if we don't? Transformed by the renewing of your mind. So renewing your mind is what transforms you, and toward what end? Toward that you can prove what God's will is. All right, so what if I don't? What if I'm not transformed? Is that going to affect me either way, according to the current gospel? I say to you by the grace given to me, to everyone who is among you, not to think of yourself more highly than you ought to think, but think soberly, as God has dealt to each one a measure of faith. What if I don't think soberly? What if I think more highly of myself than I ought? Is it really going to affect me? I'm not trying to be that way. I'm trying to point out when we read the scriptures, a lot of times our belief system kind of operates as this weird filter over the top of it so that we read it, but we're not really reading it. What is the point here of him saying this? I say to you, not to everyone who is among you. This is his message to the whole church, all of these believers. Don't think more highly of yourself than you ought to think, but think soberly. And if someone had responded to Paul and said, well, why can't I think more highly of myself than I ought to? Is it really going to affect what salvation is about? See how your definition of what salvation is supposed to be for? If you're just after access to heaven, then this really isn't going to mean much to you either way. And it's easy to dismiss and it's easy to ignore. Let's skip down a little bit. Having gifts, ministries. Here's verse 9. Let love be without hypocrisy. All right, again, is that just a good idea? Let your love be without hypocrisy. All right, what if my love has a hypocrisy? Will it really affect, if the guy next to me, his love is without hypocrisy, but mine has hypocrisy? Or is there really going to be any difference between us as far as the big picture of what the gospel is? Will one of us be barred entrance into heaven if that's what it's all about? As you can tell, my understanding is that it has nothing to do with heaven whatsoever. It has to do with what's going on in our heart. The gospel, I mean. What salvation is. So yeah, is he commanding them this, or is he just suggesting this? Abhor what is evil, cling to what is good. Okay. What if I'm tolerant of what is evil? I don't really abhor it. What if I don't really care either way? Is that close enough? Do we have to abhor it? You can see where I'm going with this. I'm trying to get it to where when you read the scriptures, you really pay attention to what's being said, and then ask yourself what the stakes are. If you don't follow what it says, are we supposed to obey this, or is it okay to disobey this as long as we believe the right concepts? If I've got faith in that Christ died and rose again, is that enough? Is that all that's required of me? Or do I need to abhor what's evil, and do I need to cling to what is good? What happens if I don't cling to what is good? And if I don't? That's why I was thinking of starting a whole new series on this. Just call it And If I Don't. And we'll just look at some of these scriptures and see. Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love. All right? And if I don't? What if I'm not kindly affectionate and brotherly love has nothing to do with it? What will be impacted? What difference will it make? Rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing steadfast in prayer, distributing to the needs of the saints, given to hospitality. Those are some pretty impressive, it's an impressive list of things that he's asking or commanding. Is this what he's telling his church that he started? Is this his gospel? You know, Paul says, my gospel. Is this just is this a take it or leave it thing? What will be the ramifications if we don't? What if we're not patient in tribulation? What if we endure it, but we squawk the whole time and we're not patient and we just want it to end and we're constantly praying for it to stop? Is that going to affect my salvation or yours? Is it going to affect what God is doing or what he can do for us? If you're a Calvinist, you believe everything is already set in stone anyways. So there literally is no difference whether you continue steadfastly in prayer or not, because you've been saved or not saved from before you were created, and there's nothing that can change that. You're either saved and you can never lose it, or you're not saved and there's nothing you can do to be saved because of God's sovereign decree. So whether you continue steadfast in prayer or not, what difference does it make? Right? If the whole goal is you're either getting into heaven or you're not, there to do who knows what, they never say. It's as though just getting through the gates is all that people can think about, not what happens once you get through the gates. Continue steadfastly in prayer. And if I don't? Distributing to the needs of the saints. Well, what if I keep to myself? What if I don't hurt anybody, but I mind my own business, and I don't distribute to the needs of the saints, but I just kind of distribute to my own needs? I'm not extravagant, I'm not greedy, but I just don't distribute. What difference will that make? Again, I'm trying to get us to take a good look at what we're reading so that it doesn't just roll by and just kind of skim off the surface. I'm trying to see if any of it can get any of its hooks in us. Bless those who persecute you. Really? I've had occasion to face that one head on lately, the last few months, or most of the year actually. Bless those who persecute you. You know how hard that is? What happens if I don't? And if I don't? What if I endure people who persecute me, but I don't bless them? How do you bless people that persecute you? Is it worth thinking about or not? Are we supposed to do this or not? Bless and do not curse. All right, well, what if I curse them every now and then? What if I bless them but occasionally also curse them? I found myself doing that in my situation. blessing this person, and also when I think of this situation and how it hooks me, I don't bless. I contemplate how it would feel if I found out the person dropped dead. That's not exactly bless those that curse you or bless those that persecute you. That's me contemplating, wouldn't break my heart if I woke up and found out that this person, something had happened. It's not actively asking for their destruction, but it's like, you contemplate it. No. Is this going to affect, if I don't do this, will it be a problem? Long term and right now. What is Paul trying to do by telling his church this? His church, the Lord's church that he's overseeing. There's people going to walk by. Hold on. Verse 15, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. And if I don't, be of the same mind toward one another. How impossible is that? You get any group of Christians together and they're not going to be of the same mind. I've been thinking about that concept lately. I always get it wrong, but you're going to know what I mean. In essentials, unity. In non-essentials, I never remember that one. Leeway, this is the idea. Let people believe what they want about non-essentials. It doesn't really matter. And in all things, charity. So in essentials, you have to agree. In non-essentials, you can disagree. But in all things, you just got to treat each other with love and respect. I take issue with that, like big time. Who gets to determine what's an essential and what is a non-essential? Why is it okay for non-essentials if something is true? It can be true for me and true for you. In fact, Paul gets into that. One person, the next chapter, I believe, one person views one day special over other days, and another person views all the days the same. They're both right. Let him that believes, it's like the same with food. Some people eat one type of thing and they give God thanks. The other person doesn't eat it and gives God thanks. And as long as they're both giving God thanks, it doesn't really matter. Is that what he means by in non-essentials? What is it? In essentials, unity. In non-essentials, brevity. Whatever it is. I'll put it on the screen. But in all things, charity. It's okay. If something's true or not, it's okay as long as it's a non-essential truth or not truth. Two people can disagree and both be right. It says, whatever you believe it in faith, because whatever is not of faith is sin. That's a topic for a whole nother video. Let me wrap up with a couple more of these. Repay no one. This is verse 17. Repay no one evil for evil. So what if I do repay evil for evil? Have regard for good things in the sight of all men. And if I don't, if it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. And if I don't, do not avenge yourselves, but give place to wrath, as it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. And if I take vengeance, what will that affect? What will that affect? Will that label me as disobedient in God's eyes? Is there any difference between one of the 10 commandments that were on the tablets in the wilderness and repay no one evil for evil, have regard for good things in the sight of all men? Are the 10 commandments essential commandments and these commandments are non-essential? Or are they all of the same caliber? Do we view the scriptures entirely the same? Some people that I interact with love to quote certain things from Paul in Romans, and then the bulk of Romans as though it doesn't exist. Do all of Romans, there's none righteous, no, not one, that everyone loves to throw around? That's Romans, chapter 3, something like that. Is that as true as, beloved, do not avenge yourself, but rather give place to wrath, because God says vengeance is his? Are they both equal caliber? Do we embrace them both? Or do we embrace one over the other? Or do we embrace one as though it's the only thing and then dismiss the other as though it doesn't exist? If your enemy is hungry, feed him. What if I don't? What will it affect if my enemy is hungry and I don't feed him? Will that make me a wicked and lazy servant? Will I be disobedient and will I be kicked out of the kingdom? Or will I be saved anyways? What impact do these scriptures in the New Testament have on us? Do we even see them all? Look at verse 21. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. That makes it seem like it's our choice, doesn't it? Do not be overcome. Can you allow yourself not to be overcome? What if I'm overcome? What if I let myself be overcome by evil? Am I good anyways? Will I still get into heaven anyways, whether I let myself be overcome by evil or not? But overcome evil with good. All right. What if I don't overcome evil with good? What if I overcome evil with more evil? What if I fight fire with fire and I'm able to overpower and bully the evil and overwhelm it and get success that way? Is that equally as valid? What is Paul saying here? And what are the ramifications if we don't? And what if I don't? Overcome evil with good. Okay, and if I don't? See? So when the next time you're studying, I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. When you read something that looks like a commandment or that sounds like a commandment, ask yourself, and what if I don't? And then let your mind go there and think, all right, what is it that Paul is saying that we need to do as believers? What is he instructing us to do? In a sense, we're his disciples, in a sense. He's imitate me as I imitate Christ. He's giving his people that are under him, Timothy and other people that are believers in all these different churches, advice as though he's the master and they're the disciples. This is what he's saying for them to do and what he's saying for us to do. Don't allow yourself to be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And if I don't. All right, so I'm going to leave that there for now. I hope you're doing well. I've got plenty of other stuff to talk about soon, and we'll go from there. All right, thanks. Bye.